They were creating and storing electricity at home in Leyden jars 270 years ago. Just think if you could create enough electricity to run your home on your own without having to be connected to the grid, which is expensive. What I believe, and it seems many of the others who believe in alternative realities feel, is that timelines have been dumbed down and humanity along with it. Pictures still exist of world fairs, such as the one in Paris in 1889, where opulent buildings were erected based on what was already available in public. So people led opulent lives of glamour and luxury back then. Do we have that history for our people now? Not really. We see them in paintings of people pushing corncob brooms, living among rats and starving even though they're working at industrial jobs, along with their 7-year-old children. The remnants of these buildings we see even now don't seem to suggest that people lived this way. In fact, they were very wealthy. Then they tell us that we're living the best we ever have, but in fact this may not be true. One alternative reality video producer says that these buildings were deconstructed into a fraction of what they formerly were, and that's what we see of places we like to go and visit when we're on vacation. Had they been of the same magnificence that they formerly were, on the other timeline, we would have stood speechless in viewing them. Or maybe not, because our own homes would have been so magnificently constructed as well. We have been dumbed down. I always wondered what Akon of Alpha Centauri was talking about when he said that some people of the galaxy have created cities based upon architecture on Earth. Maybe this is what he was talking about, not what we have today in the dumbed down timeline, but what was on the timeline where people manufactured their own electricity. I propose to you that when people started inventing things that the DS could exploit, the timelines were changed and the inventions accredited to DS members, and then we were charged for these products or services. Remember, the DS aren't creators, they're thieves and they steal from us. They've been here a long time. I don't think it's impossible to suggest that they have stolen our reality from us, and created one in which they could totally control and profit from us as well. Who's to say they're still not doing it? Well, the Galactics for one. And us, as we ascend for another. It seems life 200 or 300 years ago wasn't at all what we think it was. What we're seeing is the scaled-down version on a more constrictive timeline, it seems. The timeline where we are completely dependent upon the system, rather than creative self-fulfilling people who were vastly more wealthy and independent. Then there's the question of the Cologne Cathedral, for example, which is huge and has huge doors. If people of the recent past were shorter than we are now, then why would they need to have doors of that size? It's simple. Because giants still existed among us until just recently, but with the timeline changes, these two were wiped out of our awareness. The last giant we're supposed to know of is Goliath, and that was 2,000 years ago. By the way, one such investigator is proposing that 2,000 years ago was only 1,000 years ago and time has been advanced into the future. He says there's evidence of this on gravestones and monuments that mark time. Ashtar Sharon told me that Darwin was a fictitious creation along with his theory. Why? Because it supports the lower timeline. All lies do. He also told us that the light changed the timeline back after the Spanish flu all but wiped out humanity. Those who wanted to still live were put back into existence. He told me that my personal timeline was changed twice because I had died already 2 times. I can tell you one of them, and it was when I found myself, after having blacked out, standing in the middle of Jarvis Street in Toronto in rush hour traffic. I woke up, and looked around confused at cars honking at me. Maybe I had been hit by someone as I tried to cross the street and had died, but as the timeline was reset I came back to life. If time is so malleable, then why wouldn't the DS be playing with it? Because their cohorts, the artificial intelligence and the archons, created the timelines and put us on them. Anything we have created to aid ourselves in the past has been taken from us through a timeline change and then invented by a Freemason and then used to get money from us. Knowing what I know about reality, this is plausible to me. What if history weren't about plagues? What if man had already had cars, was able to fly, and astronomy had advanced itself well past the time of Galileo? What if what we have right now and what we believe to be our history is the poor man's version of another far more opulent timeline that we have been taken from? How did the knowledge of Atlantis never get passed on to anyone other than the occultists, the bloodline families? Yes, in our timeline they had the Inquisition, which was the final nail in the coffin of the collective knowledge of humanity. It went underground. Information, books were taken from us and stored in the Vatican Library. But what if timelines were also changed to disempower us? To take away everything we had already invented and steal it to use to gain money from us? What if the ordinary man was in fact quite wealthy and knowledgeable along with the Illuminati? Why are there still families of light and dark families and everyone else is the common man? What if the rest of us at one point were of the same affluence as the occultists and lived as the elite did? What does it take to create new timelines of lowered affluence? Pessimism. That's all it takes. I have also come to know that many families were aware of demonics, the jinn, and knew how to deal with them. Somehow they got the upper hand and were able to lower our frequency enough to hold a lower timeline. We all know that when we're born, our history is not available to us. We have no idea of who we are and who we were. This is because of the veil. I can tell you as well that before I woke up, truly woke up, I had implanted memories of past lives of struggle and difficulty as an earthling. Well, I can tell you I'm not an earthling, I've only been here once as an Atlantean. So where did these memories come from? Obviously they didn't want me believing that I came from another planet, but maybe they didn't want John Jones down the street to believe at one point he was manufacturing electricity for his own home, they want him to buy it from them. Wakey wakey. I believe I'm onto something. They have great technologies but the human is always stronger. We will get our truth back and stop living a lie. Ivo, time is malleable, my love, because your consciousness is malleable. They know ways to play with your belief systems, very effective ways. And in fact much of what you are postulating now is correct. There was affluence among the lower classes even throughout history. Your timeline includes the Iron Age, the Bronze Age, and the Vikings who did not exist in the higher timelines. There was no need for plundering and pillaging as everyone had enough to share with their neighbors. It was a different Earth. However, it has been changed. The predominant timeline is one of suffering because the negative alien alliance has manipulated it. And yes, this is only in the last 200 years. Your lower timeline has come to life for all of you through much manipulation. As you noted, you were no woman in Boston in 1797. You have never lived in the United States nor were you ever American. These were implanted in your mind to make you believe you were a suffering human, along with everyone else. You know more about who you truly are, my love, by doing your third eye traveling at night time. Me, bastards. I can hear all the Americans though, like Judd Hirsch's classic comeback in Independence Day, when he tells everyone to sit down and pray and starts reciting a prayer in Yiddish. The one man says, I'm not Jewish, and he says, nobody's perfect. We're all one so I'm part of everyone's country. I feel American too. Ivo, yes. But you see the extent to which your mind was manipulated, even your history was manipulated and they would have manipulated your future as well, if you had allowed them to. Me, LOL too strong for them. Ivo, in fact, you are. You must all be. Taking your minds back is the key to winning back your planet because you created the planet. You create your lives upon it. When you own your mind nobody can mess with you. Sharon's journey through learning re-empowerment is key in this because in becoming a re-empowered woman she has learned to take her mind back. Setting boundaries is key to this. Stating she is sovereign every day is key to this. Nobody can mess with her mind. She no longer believes that she was a woman in Boston at the time of creation of the United States. She no longer believes that she was a witch in Scotland during the Inquisition because she was neither of these. It was all implanted. If you question why they would go to such lengths to get you to believe lies, then you do not realize how strong and important your minds are to all of this. Your mind is key to their survival, and their ability to manipulate it is tantamount to their survival and continued exploitation of you. Now people are beginning to question the timelines and they should. Perhaps they do not realize that this has to do with timelines, but they are beginning to understand the possibilities at play, and how other more favorable possibilities existed for humans for such a long time until just recently. It is known that the Zetas have lived upon planet Earth for many years, thousands in fact. What do you think they've been up to for so long? Me, no good of course. Ivo, in fact that is correct. They are master manipulators. All of them are. In manipulating your DNA, in changing it, in dumbing it down if you will, they have had you create the lower timelines, which were not true. Humanity can never vibrate at such frequencies unless they were manipulated. This has filtered over into your galactic history as well. Me, I've heard there are Earthlings in space as well, including on Mars. Ivo, of course there are. How do you think you got there? On the higher timelines. Me, this is a real split, isn't it? Ivo, yes. Some held the higher timelines and were unaware of those on the lower timelines. They progressed into space. Now, for the rest of you, your fortune was elusive. Me, thank you for this, Ivo. I'm going to continue to look at what these people are revealing. It's probably fact mixed with conjecture. Ivo, it is very difficult, as you may surmise, for an Earthling to understand your true history by examining evidence on this timeline. The fact that these researchers are postulating theories based upon old evidence is a better way to try to understand humanity's reality on Earth. Using your intellect to examine what is, rather than what could have been or what appears to have been but is no longer, is folly. You will not get very far, and it is designed to do this. It is designed to be a dead end, and yes, as one researcher complained, there are gatekeepers. These gatekeepers are keeping out those inquiring minds that want to understand the few pieces of true history left on your timeline. Me, wow. This is so fascinating, Ivo. Ivo, in fact it is, my love. It is a beautiful day and you have a trip to the gardening store to make. Me, I do. Thank you for manifesting those dark purple/red tulips for me, Ivo. They're lovely. Ivo, as are you, my love.